Late one night, the Deep Space Listening Center in Australia was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Dr. Ilara Khan, a brilliant astrophysicist, was working alone in the control room. The rest of the team had gone for coffee or a short nap. She stared at the large screen in front of her, which showed countless dots representing signals from deep space. Most of them were just background noise from stars or cosmic radiation. But suddenly one signal caught her attention. It was faint, slow, and repeated in a rhythm that didn't seem natural. She frowned and leaned closer, turning up the volume on her headset. What she heard made her heart skip a beat. It was a steady pattern of beeps, too organized to be random. She immediately began recording it and called her team back into the room. Within minutes, scientists rushed in from every corner of the building. Sleepy faces turned alert as the data flashed across the monitors. The signal wasn't from any known satellite or planet. Its source came from the Andromeda sector, millions of light years away. Ilara's fingers shook as she decoded the frequency and timing. The message repeated the same sequence again and again, a distress signal. It was an SOS. Someone or something was calling for help from another galaxy. For a long moment, the entire room was silent. The realization was almost too much to take in. Humanity had spent centuries searching for proof of intelligent life beyond Earth. And now, in this quiet room in Australia, they might have just found it. But it wasn't a friendly greeting. It wasn't a message of peace. It was a cry for help. Ilara immediately reported the discovery to the United Earth Science Council. Within hours, the signal was confirmed by listening centers in Chile, India, and South Africa. The news spread faster than anyone could control it. By morning, social media was flooded with rumors. Aliens calling Earth. Message from Andromeda. Proof of life beyond the stars. Governments rushed to calm the public, but it was too late. Everyone on the planet was talking about it. The biggest discovery in human history had just happened, and no one knew what it meant. In the next few days, scientists worked non-stop to analyze the data. The message contained coordinates pointing to a dying planet surrounded by debris. Spectral scans showed strange energy patterns as if the planet had been hit by massive explosions. Some scientists believed it was the remains of a civilization destroyed by war or disaster. The message itself seemed desperate, full of broken tones and incomplete words. Some experts thought it was a distress call. Others believed it could be a trap. But despite all the warnings, one thing was certain. It came from intelligent life. Dr. Ilara became the face of the discovery. Cameras followed her everywhere. News anchors called her the woman who heard the universe cry. Yet behind her calm smile, she felt uneasy. There was something strange about the signal. When she slowed it down and enhanced the sound, she could hear faint background noises, echoes, mechanical clicks, and something that sounded almost like breathing. It was as if the message was alive. The world's governments gathered in emergency meetings. The United Earth Council, a new organization formed to unite nations in major global events, held a top-secret session. Generals, scientists, and politicians argued for hours. Some believed they should respond immediately, send a message of peace, and try to make contact. Others warned that answering could be dangerous. What if whoever sent it was hostile? What if they were luring Earth into something it couldn't handle? The debate grew intense, but in the end, humanity's curiosity and courage won. For the first time in history, Earth decided to answer a call from the stars. The Council authorized a response mission. The United Earth Defense Fleet, a massive force built to protect Earth's orbit, was ordered to prepare for deep space travel. Their mission would be to locate the source of the SOS and offer help if needed. The fleet included scientists, diplomats, engineers, and elite soldiers. It was the most advanced mission ever planned by mankind. The news shook the world. Millions cheered the decision. Children dreamed of meeting aliens. Scientists hoped for new knowledge. But a small number of people feared this decision would bring danger that Earth was not ready for. Dr. Ilara Khan was invited to join the mission as the lead signal analyst. She spent her final night on Earth gazing at the stars, wondering what waited for them in the darkness. She remembered her father's words from childhood. The universe hides its secrets not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Now she began to understand what he meant. Maybe this signal wasn't just a call for help. Maybe it was a warning. While preparations began on Earth, the signal continued to repeat every few hours. But something strange started happening. Its tone changed. The pattern became faster, sharper, more distorted, as if the sender knew they were being answered. Sometimes the message carried strange pulses of energy, like emotional waves. The scientists couldn't explain it. The data looked more like a heartbeat than a transmission. Some even suggested that the signal might not be just a message. It could be alive, part of a larger consciousness stretching across space. As the United Earth fleet assembled, the public was filled with excitement and fear. Massive launch platforms on the Moon and Mars prepared the ships for departure. The fleet's flagship, Valiant Dawn, stood ready, a colossal ship carrying thousands of people and the most advanced weapons and technologies ever built. Its commander, Admiral Isaac Grant, was a respected war hero, known for his calm leadership and loyalty to humanity. In an interview before launch, he said, "We are not going out there as conquerors. We go as explorers, protectors, and listeners. If someone is calling for help, humanity will answer." The world watched live as the fleet prepared for departure. In cities across the planet, people gathered around screens, waving flags and praying. Families of the crew stood together, some crying, some smiling proudly. When the countdown began, the sound of engines roared like thunder. The ships lifted off one by one, rising into the black sky until they disappeared among the stars. Humanity had taken its first step into intergalactic space. As the fleet left Earth behind, Dr. Ilara sat by the observation window, staring at the distant stars. The Andromeda signal still played softly in her earpiece. It had become familiar now, almost comforting. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far greater than they imagined. Her screen showed the coordinates again, a small dying world on the edge of a distant system. The data showed no life signs, no atmosphere capable of sustaining anything alive. Yet the signal still came from there, strong and steady, back on Earth. A few scientists who stayed behind continued to monitor the transmission. One of them, a young intern named Malik, noticed something alarming just as the fleet disappeared from radar. The signal they had been tracking suddenly shifted. It was no longer pointing toward the Andromeda system. Now it was locked onto Earth's position. The SOS wasn't calling for help anymore, it was watching. Malik tried to alert his superiors, but before he could finish his report, the entire communication network glitched for a few seconds, and when the signal returned, the coordinates had vanished completely. Dr. Ilara and the fleet didn't know any of this. They were already halfway across the void, following a message they believed was a cry for help. The crew shared stories and hopes, thinking they were about to make peaceful contact with another civilization. They imagined themselves as heroes, explorers, and ambassadors of humankind. But space was silent, cold, and endless, and somewhere far ahead on that dark planet, something waited, something that knew exactly who they were and what they were coming for. As the fleet moved closer to its destination, Ilara stared at the repeating waves of data on her monitor. The message's pattern changed once more, but this time it wasn't an SOS. When she translated the symbols, her eyes widened in fear. It didn't say "help us" anymore. It said, "Come closer." The United Earth Defense Fleet looked like a shining constellation as it prepared to leave the solar system. Dozens of massive ships floated in formation near the edge of Mars' orbit, their engines glowing like miniature suns. Inside the flagship Valiant Dawn, Admiral Isaac Grant stood on the bridge watching the final preparations on the holographic display. He had led many missions before, but this one felt different. This was not a war, not a patrol. It was humanity's first step into another galaxy. The whole world was watching, hoping this journey would mark a new chapter in history. Dr. Ilara Khan sat in the communications center, surrounded by glowing screens filled with data. The alien SOS signal was still repeating, but it had changed slightly. There were new pulses between the beeps, almost like coded breathing. Every time she heard it, she felt something deep inside, fear mixed with fascination. The message wasn't random. It was as if the sender knew she was listening. She had tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, but something about the tone felt alive, aware. The fleet's departure was smooth. The ships accelerated together, entering hyperspace in perfect synchronization. In seconds, Earth disappeared behind them, replaced by the vast emptiness of intergalactic space. The journey to the Andromeda sector would take weeks, even with the fastest drives humanity had ever built. Life on the ships became routine. Engineers checked systems, scientists studied the signal, and soldiers trained for emergencies. Yet everyone could feel the tension. No one knew what awaited them at the coordinates of the distress call. Admiral Grant walked the corridors daily, speaking to crew members, encouraging them and reminding them of their purpose. "We're explorers first," he would say, "but we'll protect humanity if we must." His calm voice gave people strength, but even he felt the unease growing stronger each day. The closer they came to their destination, the more unstable the alien signal became. Sometimes it broke into static. Sometimes it screamed in high-pitched tones that made the crew cover their ears. One evening, as the fleet neared the outer edge of the target system, the communications team detected something new. The signal was now transmitting strange visual data, patterns of light that formed distorted images. When Alara slowed them down, she saw flashes of ruined cities, broken towers, and skies filled with fire. It looked like a world dying in pain. The message seemed to be showing them what had happened there. But there was something else hidden in the background. Shadows moving between the flames, shapes that looked like tall, armored beings with glowing eyes. The scientists believed the aliens were victims of some disaster, perhaps a war or natural catastrophe. They argued that humanity had a duty to help, but some military officers were more cautious. Commander Reyes, the fleet's security chief, warned that the images might be a trick. "If they can send us a signal across galaxies," he said, "they're advanced enough to deceive us too." His warning made sense, but the Council back on Earth had already ordered the fleet to investigate no matter what. Humanity could not ignore a call for help, especially one that could change its place in the universe forever. Finally, after nearly a month of travel, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The stars of the Andromeda system appeared all around them like silver dust. Ahead lay the planet from which the SOS had been sent. It was larger than Earth, surrounded by rings of metallic debris, but there was no sign of life. The atmosphere was thin and glowing red from radiation. Entire continents were cracked open, and the surface looked like it had been burned by massive explosions. The ship's scanners detected traces of nuclear and plasma energy, suggesting a war had taken place not long ago. Ilara stared at the hologram of the planet in disbelief. "This can't be right," she whispered. "The signal is still active, but there's nothing alive down there." Admiral Grant ordered a closer approach. As the fleet moved into orbit, drones were deployed to scan the surface. They found enormous cities reduced to ash, with massive metal skeletons that once stood as skyscrapers. Strange symbols were carved into the ruins, glowing faintly as if the planet itself was trying to speak. The engineers found the exact source of the SOS deep within the largest ruin, a massive structure shaped like a spiral tower. The signal came from beneath it. Grant decided to send a small team down to investigate, led by Alara herself. She hesitated at first, but knew she couldn't refuse. If anyone could understand the signal, it was her. The landing craft descended through clouds of dust and ash, shaking violently as it entered the planet's decaying atmosphere. When they touched down, the surface was silent except for the faint crackling of static energy in the air. The ground was covered in glass-like sand, melted from intense heat. The ruins were enormous, walls higher than mountains, statues of alien figures frozen mid-motion, as if they had been turned to stone in an instant. Alara felt both awe and sadness. This place had once been alive. Inside the spiral tower, the team followed the signal deeper underground. The corridors were lined with strange machinery that looked organic, like living metal. The lights flickered as they passed, reacting to their presence. When they reached the central chamber, they found the source of the transmission, a massive black sphere floating above a pool of liquid metal. Cables connected it to the walls, pulsing faintly with blue light. The signal's beeping came directly from the sphere. It wasn't a transmitter, it was something more. Ilara approached slowly, scanning it with her device. The readings made no sense. The sphere was generating both energy and data, as if it contained a mind. She touched her headset and played the latest recording of the signal. The beeps matched the pulses of light coming from the sphere. It was responding to her, like a heartbeat syncing with another. Suddenly, the lights in the room flashed and the signal's tone changed into a deep, echoing sound that made everyone freeze.
"Step back!"
one of the soldiers shouted. But before they could react, the sphere projected a burst of light. Holographic images filled the chamber, scenes of a great civilization, billions of beings living in towering cities. Then the images shifted. The skies turned red. Gigantic ships appeared in orbit firing streams of plasma. The ground exploded and the cities burned. The last thing they saw was a group of these aliens sending out the SOS signal before everything went dark. The light vanished, leaving only silence. Alara fell to her knees, her heart pounding. She had just witnessed the final moments of an entire species, but something still didn't fit. The images showed no attackers, only destruction from the sky. Who had wiped them out? And why was the signal still active long after their extinction? Back on the Valiant Dawn, the Admiral watched from orbit as the data streamed in. The scientists on the ship were puzzled. The signal was not just coming from the planet anymore. It was echoing from multiple points across the system, like a network spreading outward. It was as if something invisible had awakened. When Alara's team returned to the ship, they brought samples and data for study. But before they could start analyzing it, strange things began happening to the fleet. The ship's sensors picked up faint movements in the debris fields around the planet. At first, everyone thought it was just asteroid drift. But then, one of the smaller ships reported seeing shapes, metallic, moving in formation. They looked like ships, but they weren't human. Admiral Grant ordered a defensive position and raised shields. The crew scrambled to their stations. Every eye turned to the observation windows, searching the darkness. Slowly, from behind the planet's shadow, a fleet of unknown vessels emerged. They were sleek and black, reflecting no light. Their movements were too smooth, too precise. It was as if they had been waiting there all along. Ilara's heart sank as she realized the truth. The SOS was not a call for help. It was a lure. Someone or something had sent it to draw them in. The alien ships spread out silently, surrounding the human fleet like hunters circling prey. The signal from the black sphere suddenly stopped, replaced by a single pulse that echoed across all communication channels. Then for the first time, a new message came through, deep, metallic, and chilling. In broken human language, it said, "We see you, welcome." The fleet's alarms blared. Red lights filled the bridge of the Valiant Dawn. Admiral Grant's voice boomed through the speakers. "All hands, battle stations. We're under attack!" And with that, humanity's first mission of peace turned into its first war among the stars. The calm of space shattered in an instant. The fleet that had been carefully hovering above the ruined planet now found itself surrounded by ships that moved with impossible speed and precision. They emerged from the shadows of the debris, sleek black vessels that seemed alive, gliding as if they knew exactly where every human ship was. The alarms on the Valiant Dawn screamed, and red lights flashed across the bridge. Admiral Isaac Grant's face hardened as he barked orders. "All hands, brace for impact. Deploy shields and prepare weapons. This is not a drill." The first shots hit with terrifying power. 2 human ships exploded almost immediately, torn apart by weapons unlike anything the fleet had ever seen. The energy pulses left craters in space, sending fragments of debris spinning in deadly arcs. The fleet was unprepared for the sudden assault. Pilots scrambled to maneuver, trying to evade the alien weapons, but the attackers anticipated every move. It quickly became clear that the SOS signal had been a trap. Whoever had sent it had studied humanity for a long time, understood their instincts, and exploited their sense of duty. On the bridge, scientists and military officers worked together frantically. Dr. Ilara Khan monitored the enemy ships, analyzing their speed and trajectory. "They're not just fast," she said, her voice tight with tension. "They're predicting our movements. It's like they know what we're thinking." Commander Reyes, standing beside her, nodded grimly. "They've been watching us. They knew we'd come for a rescue." "That signal? It was bait." Admiral Grant didn't hesitate. "Counterattack! Focus fire on the nearest targets. Protect the civilians aboard the fleet." The human ships unleashed a torrent of energy beams and missiles, but the alien vessels absorbed the impacts almost effortlessly. Every human attack seemed to provoke a faster, more precise response. The fleet was being outmaneuvered at every turn. As the battle raged, the full scale of the enemy's strength became horrifyingly clear. The black ships were not only fast and powerful, they were coordinated. They communicated through pulses of energy, changing positions instantly and striking in deadly patterns. Human pilots struggled to adapt, dodging laser beams and plasma bursts that could cut through the thickest armor. Entire squadrons were destroyed within moments, leaving only wreckage drifting in the void. Despite the chaos, humanity refused to give up. Engineers on the Valiant Dawn worked tirelessly to reroute power to damaged systems. When shields failed on one ship, Technicians redirected energy to engines, turning it into a makeshift weapon platform. Pilots adapted their tactics, splitting into unpredictable patterns, making it harder for the aliens to anticipate their moves. Soldiers aboard the fleet took up positions in zero-gravity chambers, ready to repel boarding parties if necessary. Even in the face of overwhelming force, human ingenuity shone brightly. Ilara, focused on decoding the enemy's communication signals, noticed a pattern. The alien ships were connected to a central node on the planet, the black sphere that had transmitted the SOS. Every movement and attack seemed to originate from it. "They're being controlled," she shouted. "There's a command center down there. If we destroy it, we might disable their fleet." Admiral Grant nodded, formulating a daring plan. "Prepare a strike team. We'll take out the command node and cut the head off the snake. It's risky, but it's our best chance." The strike team, consisting of the fleet's best pilots and engineers, prepared to descend to the planet's surface. They would need to navigate through debris, avoid enemy fire, and land close enough to attack the command node directly. Every step was calculated, every second critical. The fleet provided covering fire, drawing the aliens' attention and giving the strike team a slim window of opportunity. The descent was terrifying. The alien ships pursued them relentlessly, firing beams that sliced through rock and metal alike. The landing craft shook violently, their shields barely holding against the onslaught. Debris from destroyed ships rained down around them, forcing pilots to make split-second decisions. Every miscalculation could mean death. Yet they pressed on, driven by a combination of fear, duty, and hope that they could turn the tide. Upon landing, the team was greeted by devastation. The planet's surface was a war zone, full of twisted metal and shattered structures. The air crackled with energy from the black sphere above, sending pulses through the ground. The strike team navigated through the ruins cautiously, avoiding traps and residual energy blasts. Ilara monitored the sphere, noting that its pulses synced with the alien fleet's movements. Every time the sphere sent out a pulse, the ships responded instantly, striking with precision. Reaching the central chamber of the black sphere, the strike team discovered its true nature. It was not a simple machine, it was alive, a fusion of technology and biological consciousness. Within it were the minds of the aliens, connected and controlled by an unknown intelligence. The SOS that had lured humanity was part of its strategy, exploiting their empathy and curiosity. Ilara realized that destroying the node would not only disable the fleet, but potentially free any alien minds trapped inside. She sent her findings to Admiral Grant, who quickly approved the final assault plan. The team prepared explosives and tactical devices, working under constant threat of discovery. Every second was a race against time, as the alien fleet above sensed their presence and intensified attacks. On the ships in orbit, human pilots coordinated a massive diversion, drawing enemy fire away from the strike team. Explosions erupted around the orbiting ships and energy beams lit up the void, creating a chaotic ballet of destruction. The strike team moved forward, weaving through the remaining defenses and planting charges at critical points of the black sphere. As the charges were set, the sphere began reacting violently. Pulses of energy surged through the chamber, knocking several team members off their feet. The black sphere's hum grew louder, almost like a scream. The aliens' fleet in orbit faltered for the first time. Their coordinated attacks briefly interrupted as the command node began to destabilize. Ilara worked frantically to sync the detonation with the fleet's assault above, ensuring maximum impact. Finally, with a countdown on their devices, the charges detonated. The black sphere erupted in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves through the planet and disabling the alien ships above. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. The fleet watched in awe as the black ships drifted, powerless, cut off from the intelligence controlling them. Humanity had won its first real battle in space, but the cost was staggering. Dozens of ships had been destroyed, hundreds of lives lost, and the survivors were left shaken by the intensity of the encounter. Amid the wreckage, the strike team retrieved the last data from the sphere, hoping to learn more about the aliens and their technology. Ilara realized that humanity had not only fought for survival, but had also glimpsed the vast intelligence and power that existed beyond their own world. The SOS had been a trap, yes, but it had also been a test, an introduction to the reality of interstellar life, where curiosity and compassion could be exploited, and where survival depended on courage, ingenuity, and unity. Admiral Grant called a meeting with his officers. "We survived because we worked together, because we adapted," he said. But this is only the beginning. We have proven we can fight, but there are forces out there far stronger than us. We must prepare, or humanity will not last long in this universe." The crew nodded solemnly. Everyone understood the truth. The SOS had been a trap, but it had also revealed humanity's potential. They had faced a deadly enemy and survived, but they had also discovered that the galaxy was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Even as they regrouped, a final transmission from the Black Sphere's remains reached the fleet. In broken human language, a voice whispered, "We warned you. They are coming." The message left no doubt. Earth had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the war was only beginning. Humanity had survived the ambush, but the knowledge of greater threats hung over them like a dark shadow. The fleet turned back to orbit, damaged but undefeated, carrying the first taste of a war that would stretch across stars and test the limits of human courage. The strike team returned to the ships, exhausted and battered, but they were celebrated as heroes. Every ship in the fleet had a story of bravery, sacrifice, and ingenuity. Pilots who had narrowly escaped destruction shared their experiences. Engineers who had repaired impossible damage marveled at their own resilience. Scientists analyzed the captured data, realizing that the knowledge contained within the Black Sphere could change the course of human history. Yet, despite their victory, everyone knew that this encounter was only a small glimpse of the challenges ahead. Humanity had faced the ambush, had fought back, and had survived. But they had also learned that the universe was vast, intelligent, and dangerous, and that responding to a simple SOS could lead them into a battle far greater than they had ever imagined. The battle was far from over. Even after the destruction of the Black Sphere, the human fleet faced a daunting reality. The alien fleet was still in orbit, scattered but far from defeated. The surviving alien ships moved cautiously now, unsure of the humans' next actions, but their presence alone was enough to keep the fleet on high alert. Every ship was damaged, some heavily, and many crews were exhausted from the relentless attacks. Yet humanity's resolve remained unbroken. Admiral Isaac Grant knew that retreat was not an option. They had to act, not only to survive but to ensure the safety of Earth. Inside the Valiant Dawn, the bridge was a flurry of activity. Engineers were working non-stop to repair shields, recalibrate weapons, and patch hull breaches. The fleet's medical teams were overwhelmed, treating dozens of wounded personnel, some of whom had barely escaped destruction. Dr. Ilara Khan was poring over the data recovered from the Black Sphere, trying to find a way to anticipate the enemy's next moves. The sphere had contained vast amounts of information, technical schematics, energy patterns, and even partial maps of the alien command structure. It was clear that the aliens had built an interconnected system where every ship, weapon, and sensor was controlled in near real time from a central node. Ilara realized that humanity's survival depended on understanding this system. If they could disrupt the link entirely, they might cripple the remaining alien ships. But the complexity of the network was staggering. The signals were encrypted, dynamic, and adaptive. The moment the humans made a move, the aliens' fleet adjusted its strategy in response. It was as if the enemy anticipated every step before it happened. "They're not just reacting," Ilara told Admiral Grant. "They're predicting. We have to be faster than they can think." Grant called a meeting with his top officers to plan the next move. "We've survived the ambush," he said, "but we cannot sit here waiting for another attack. We need to strike at the heart of their control network." His plan was daring, a coordinated assault on the remaining command nodes they had identified from the sphere's data. Small strike teams would land on the planet's surface at multiple locations simultaneously, targeting satellite relay points that maintained the alien fleet's coordination. Meanwhile, the fleet would engage in a full-scale diversion in orbit, drawing attention away from the strike teams. The preparations were meticulous. Pilots trained repeatedly for precise maneuvers, simulating enemy attack patterns based on the limited intelligence they had gathered. Engineers worked on modifying the landing craft to withstand high-energy pulses from the alien systems. Soldiers prepared for ground combat, ready to face whatever defenses might remain. Every member of the fleet understood the risks. This was a mission from which few might return. Yet the determination to succeed was universal. Humanity had come too far to retreat now. When the strike teams descended to the planet's surface, they found it even more hostile than before. The ruins stretched endlessly, and the environment was unstable. Seismic tremors shook the ground as residual energy pulses from the destroyed black sphere interacted with the planet's crust. Massive fissures opened in the surface, emitting plumes of radioactive gas. The teams moved cautiously, scanning for alien defense mechanisms that might have survived the initial attack. The air crackled with static, making electronic systems unstable, and visibility was limited by dust and smoke. Despite the danger, the strike teams advanced with incredible precision. Using the data from the black sphere, they located the satellite relay points that controlled the alien fleet. Each relay was heavily guarded by automated drones and residual energy shields. The teams deployed EMP devices and explosives, carefully timing their attacks to avoid triggering a full defensive response. When one team successfully disabled a relay, the corresponding alien ships above lost their coordination, moving erratically and firing haphazardly. It was the first sign that humanity's strategy was working. In orbit, the human fleet capitalized on the confusion. Pilots performed daring maneuvers, weaving between enemy fire while targeting weakened alien ships. Energy beams lanced through space, striking with pinpoint accuracy. Engineers on the ships rerouted power from damaged systems into weapons and shields, turning compromised vessels into mobile artillery platforms. Every moment was critical, and every decision could mean life or death. The synchronized effort between the strike teams on the planet and the fleet above demonstrated humanity's adaptability under pressure. Meanwhile, on the ground, Ilara discovered something unexpected. While scanning one of the relay points, she detected faint neural signals embedded within the alien machinery. It appeared that some of the aliens' minds were still connected to the network, trapped and partially conscious. The realization was chilling. Not only had the SOS been a trap, but many of the aliens themselves were victims, forced to fight against their own species. Ilara relayed the information to Admiral Grant, who immediately adjusted the mission. They could not simply destroy the network. They had to sever the link without harming the alien consciousnesses trapped within. The strike teams worked tirelessly, navigating the labyrinthine ruins and dodging energy pulses from remaining alien defenses. Every relay point they disabled caused visible changes in the fleet above. Ships that had been precise and deadly moments ago now collided with debris or fired wildly at empty space. The synchronized attacks brought hope to the human forces. Each success was a victory, a sign that the aliens' control network could be broken. As the hours passed, the battle reached its climax. The strike teams converged on the central relay cluster, a massive structure partially buried under the rubble of a once great city. It pulsed with energy, the last remaining node holding the fleet's coordination together. The teams deployed their final devices, carefully following Ilara's instructions to disrupt the system without harming the trapped minds. The ground trembled violently as energy surged through the node. For a moment, it seemed like the planet itself might tear apart under the pressure. Then, with a deafening pulse of light, the network collapsed. Alien ships above lost all coordination, drifting helplessly in orbit. Weapons ceased firing, engines shut down, and the remaining drones fell inert. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had neutralized the alien fleet without destroying the lives trapped within it. The surviving alien consciousnesses, freed from the network, sent a quiet, haunting transmission to the humans. It was not a message of thanks, but a warning. A fragment of awareness that hinted at a far larger threat lurking somewhere in the galaxy. The human fleet regrouped, damaged but victorious. Pilots returned to the Valiant Dawn, where Admiral Grant and Dr. Ilara Khan reviewed the data from the strike teams. They had survived a battle that should have been impossible. The cooperation between human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability had turned the tide. Engineers repaired essential systems, medics cared for the wounded, and scientists began studying the alien technology. The knowledge they had gained was invaluable, offering insight into advanced energy systems, fleet coordination, and even alien neural structures. Yet amidst the victory, a sense of unease lingered. The alien fleet was neutralized, but the intelligence behind the SOS remained unknown. The messages from the freed minds hinted at greater forces, entities far beyond anything humanity had encountered. Admiral Grant addressed the crew, his voice solemn but steady. "We have won today, but this is only the beginning. The galaxy is vast, and what we faced here is only a small part of what exists out there. We must prepare for what comes next because survival will demand everything we have." Ilara reflected on the events, realizing the depth of what humanity had faced. They had been lured into a trap, ambushed by a superior force, and yet had turned the tide through ingenuity, bravery, and teamwork. The SOS that had seemed like a call for help had been a test, a challenge that revealed both human vulnerabilities and strengths. Humanity had proven that they could fight, adapt, and survive in the face of overwhelming odds. As the fleet prepared to leave the system, Alara continued analyzing the alien data. The freed minds had provided partial maps of the surrounding galaxy, showing territories controlled by other advanced civilizations. The implications were staggering. Humanity was no longer alone, and the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The experience had taught them that survival required more than courage. It required knowledge, strategy, and unity. The fleet slowly moved away from the planet, carrying the survivors, the wounded, and the data that could change the course of history. Ships glimmered against the backdrop of Andromeda's stars, battered but unbroken. Humanity had endured the struggle, adapted to the challenge, and survived a battle that many had thought impossible. Yet the warning from the alien consciousnesses lingered in every mind aboard the fleet. The galaxy was watching, and greater dangers awaited. The battle for the void had ended, but its lessons would shape humanity forever. Pilots recounted the chaos, engineers marveled at their own ingenuity, and scientists dreamed of the possibilities unlocked by alien technology. Every member of the fleet knew that they had survived something monumental, something that would be remembered for generations. Humanity had faced the unknown, adapted against impossible odds, and survived. But the universe was far from done testing them. The fleet floated silently above the shattered surface of the planet, the remnants of battle drifting in the black void around them. Humanity had endured a brutal encounter, but the war was not yet over. The surviving alien ships were disabled, drifting like ghostly hulks. But Admiral Isaac Grant knew that a threat this sophisticated would not remain dormant forever. They had neutralized the immediate danger, but the knowledge that greater forces existed out there weighed heavily on every mind aboard the fleet. Humanity had survived the ambush, but the galaxy was vast, and nothing could be taken for granted. As the valiant Dawn coordinated the retreat, Dr. Alara Khan worked tirelessly analyzing the alien technology they had captured. The Black Sphere's remains contained invaluable data, technical schematics, energy readings, and fragments of the alien neural network. She and her team discovered that the sphere was not just a command node, but a central intelligence hub. It had controlled the alien fleet with perfect precision, anticipating human strategies before they even occurred. By understanding its systems, they could replicate some of its functions, giving humanity a glimpse into technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. The realization filled the scientists with both excitement and unease. They had gained incredible knowledge, but it was dangerous, and they still did not understand the full scope of what they had faced. On the bridge, Admiral Grant gathered his officers. They reviewed reports from the strike teams and the fleet's remaining pilots. Hundreds of human lives had been lost, and dozens of ships had been destroyed. Yet amidst the destruction, humanity had triumphed. The alien fleet, powerful and precise, had been neutralized through the combination of courage, strategy, and quick adaptation. Grant praised his officers and crew, but he reminded them that the battle had revealed only a small fraction of the galaxy's dangers. "We have survived today," he said, voice steady and commanding, "but what we have seen is only a warning. There are others out there waiting, watching, and they will be stronger than this. Our fight is just beginning." The survivors worked quickly to repair the fleet. Engineers rerouted power through damaged hulls, patched shields, and reinforced engines. Medical teams treated the wounded, many of whom had endured extreme exposure to radiation and energy pulses from the alien weapons. Pilots and soldiers cleaned and repaired their ships, preparing for whatever threat might come next. In every corner of the fleet there was a quiet determination, a shared understanding that humanity had faced the unimaginable and survived. The experience had forged unity, resilience, and courage among everyone aboard. Alara continued her analysis of the alien data, and what she discovered was staggering. The Black Sphere contained fragmented records of the aliens' knowledge and history. It revealed that their civilization had been part of a larger network of advanced species, some of which were still active across the galaxy. The SOS had been a deliberate trap designed to lure compassionate species into a testing ground. The aliens had studied humanity for decades, observing their behavior and predicting their response. It was both horrifying and enlightening. Humanity had been tested and they had passed, but the message from the freed alien minds was clear. Other, far more dangerous forces existed, and Earth had just announced its presence to the cosmos. The fleet prepared to leave orbit and chart a course back toward Earth, carrying with them the wounded, the survivors, and the alien data. But just as they were about to depart, the communication systems picked up a faint transmission. At first it was barely audible, a ghostly pulse repeating across multiple channels. Then a voice emerged, broken but unmistakable, speaking in a language partially understood thanks to the sphere's data. "We warned you. They are coming," the message repeated, echoing across every channel in the fleet. Its meaning was clear. The galaxy was aware of humanity now, and greater dangers lay ahead. Admiral Grant gathered his officers again to discuss their next steps. The fleet had survived, but the encounter had exposed vulnerabilities. Humanity had fought with bravery and ingenuity, but they had also learned that the universe was vast and filled with intelligence far beyond their comprehension. The officers agreed that Earth needed to prepare. Advanced fleets, defensive networks, and interstellar communication systems would be crucial for survival. The encounter had been a trial, but it had also offered knowledge, technology, and strategies that could make humanity stronger in the long run. On board the Valiant Dawn, the crew reflected on what they had endured. Pilots recounted the chaos of the orbital battles, describing alien ships that moved like living shadows, predicting every maneuver. Soldiers told stories of the strike teams navigating the planet's surface under intense danger, disabling alien nodes while dodging energy pulses. Engineers shared their triumphs in restoring damaged systems and turning crippled ships into fighting platforms. Scientists described the data they had recovered and the potential it held. Each story highlighted human resilience, adaptability, and courage under the most extreme circumstances. Even as the fleet began its journey back to Earth, the experience continued to change the crew. They had seen firsthand what could happen when curiosity and empathy were exploited by intelligent forces. They had faced death in unimaginable forms and had prevailed, but the galaxy had revealed itself as a dangerous place. Humanity had survived, but they were no longer naive. They understood that future encounters could be more deadly, that the universe was filled with civilizations far stronger than their own, and that the lessons learned here would be crucial for survival. As they traveled, Ilara worked on decoding the remaining fragments of alien data. She discovered methods to predict fleet movements, analyze energy systems, and understand communication networks. The knowledge was incomplete, but it offered humanity a foothold in a universe that had previously seemed unknowable. She shared her findings with Admiral Grant, who began planning strategies to defend Earth and extend humanity's presence beyond the solar system. The fleet had returned with not only survivors but also tools that could make them stronger in the years to come. The surviving alien consciousnesses, freed from the black sphere, had also left traces of their awareness in the fleet's systems. These traces were incomplete and fragmented, but they hinted at a larger network of civilizations, some of which were active and powerful. Humanity now knew that the galaxy was connected in ways they had never imagined, and that alliances, threats, and intelligence networks extended far beyond what Earth could perceive. The encounter had provided knowledge that could change the course of human history, but it also revealed just how small and vulnerable Earth truly was. As the fleet approached Earth, the crew looked back at the distant, ruined planet, silent now except for drifting debris. It had been a battlefield, a testing ground, and a warning. Humanity had survived because of courage, ingenuity, and unity, but the encounter had shown that survival in space was not guaranteed. The lessons learned would shape the development of fleets, defense systems, and strategies for decades to come. Earth had been alerted to the presence of intelligent forces far beyond its reach, and the knowledge gained would be critical in preparing for the challenges ahead. Upon return, humanity welcomed the fleet as heroes. The surviving crews were celebrated for their bravery and ingenuity. The knowledge recovered from the alien systems was studied by scientists around the world, offering insight into technologies that could advance humanity by decades or centuries. Pilots, soldiers, and engineers were honored for their courage, while Dr. Ilara Khan and her team became celebrated figures for their role in decoding the alien signal and understanding the Black Sphere. The events of the battle became legendary, a story of survival and adaptation against overwhelming odds. Yet despite the triumph, The message from the freed alien minds and the remnants of the black sphere haunted everyone. "They are coming," the transmission had warned. Humanity now knew that the galaxy was vast, filled with intelligent life, some of it friendly, some deadly. The encounter had tested them and they had survived, but it had also revealed that survival was only the beginning. There were civilizations far stronger than humanity, and Earth's place in the universe was no longer hidden. In the months that followed, humanity began preparing. Fleets were expanded, defenses were strengthened, and deep space monitoring was increased. The encounter had taught them that knowledge and adaptation were as critical as courage. Dr. Ilara Khan continued to study the alien data, developing systems to anticipate attacks, improve fleet coordination, and understand alien technologies. Admiral Grant oversaw the expansion of Earth's defense fleet, training new crews to handle threats on a galactic scale. Humanity had learned a crucial lesson. Survival required more than bravery. It required strategy, unity, and preparation. Even as celebrations continued on Earth, the memory of the SOS trap lingered. Humanity had faced death, deception, and overwhelming odds, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more aware of their place in the universe. The war fleet had not only survived the ambush, it had adapted, learned, and grown. Every pilot, soldier, engineer, and scientist understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had revealed itself, both its dangers and its possibilities, and humanity had taken its first steps toward facing what lay beyond. The final lesson of the battle was clear. Humanity had survived because they refused to give up, because they adapted faster than their enemies, and because they worked together. The fleet had faced destruction, deception, and nearly impossible odds, yet they had prevailed. But the galaxy was watching, and the warning was clear. Greater forces would come, and humanity would have to be ready. The SOS that had seemed like a call for help had been a test, a trap, and ultimately a revelation. Humanity had survived, but they now knew the truth. Survival was only the first step in a universe full of unimaginable challenges. As the fleet approached Earth's orbit, the crew prepared for re-entry and repair. They carried with them not only the survivors but also the knowledge, experience, and courage gained from the encounter. Humanity had proven it could survive against overwhelming odds, but they had also learned humility, strategy, and foresight. The SOS had been a mistake for the aliens who sent it, but for humanity it had become a defining moment, shaping the future of Earth and the human species for generations to come. The fleet's return was celebrated, but the people of Earth understood that the galaxy had just revealed its first warning. Humanity had survived, but the war for survival was only beginning. The universe was vast, full of dangers and opportunities, and Earth had announced itself to the stars. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, the forces warned about by the freed alien minds were watching, waiting, and preparing. Humanity's first victory was complete, but the real challenge, the fight for survival in a galaxy that had noticed them, was only just beginning.